Would you like to live your best life possible, regardless of your imperfections? Discover cutting-edge tools and inspiration to let go of your limitations and expand your life beyond what you've ever imagined. On Imperfect Brilliance, we help you tap into your unique gifts and talents, uncovering and letting your brilliance shine. Join certified facilitator and coach Betsy McLaughlin as she delves into different areas of your life to get unstuck and create the life that is truly possible for you. Betsy has changed her life by utilizing the tools and techniques she is sharing with you. What if your willingness to acknowledge your brilliance is the catalyst to creating a new reality? When you stop judging you, what else can you create in your life and in the world? Join Betsy live every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern to create magical and joyous possibilities for an hour of laughs, questions, tips, and more. We are excited to contribute and play with you.
Hello. How are you guys doing out there in Radio Land? I'm Betsy McLaughlin and super happy to have today with me a wonderful, wonderful gal, Miss Sarah Grandinetti. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Sarah is so much fun, and today we are going to be talking about your future. I'm wondering, are you aware of a future you know is possible, but you are not sure how to create it, how to actualize it, how to have it actually show up? And so we're gonna explore what that looks like. How do you create it? And that one of the terms for it could be, are you a futurist? And what's a futurist? What's a wavemaker? And I'm sure way more is what we're going to talk about today with Sarah. And Sarah, a little piece of information about her. She has been a guest on my show before, and I do love having her here. And she is an international speaker. She is a certified facilitator with Access Consciousness. And she inspires so many people to choose more, actualize their dreams, and really to choose all that they can be and even more than they're aware of. And she has a rare combination of humor, warmth, insight, and she really does invite people to feel empowered, release their limitations, and be themselves. She, up until recently, she was a celebrity hair salon owner in Los Angeles, California, United States. And so she's got a wide variety of skills and experiences and background to, I get that really contributes to everything that she's creating in the world. And her website is www.sarahgrandinetti.com, which is spelled SARAHGRAN as in Nancy, DI, another N, ETTI.com. And Sarah, is there anything that you would like to add to my brief description of you?
I think that was a brilliant description, and I'm just excited to dive into this chat with you.
Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit even about where did this topic idea come from and the word being a wave maker. Tell us how that originated.
Sure. I started to look at all the people in the world that have made changes and whether their dreams were actually actualized, they actually started the wave, which then creates the ripple effect. They were willing to look at what was possible as the futurists that they be and start to walk in the world as the change that they can be and inspire others to create. And whether, like I said, everything they've asked for. And we have some, brilliant people that we know throughout history who, as one person, led movements. Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, like there's all sorts of people that like we can look back and go, wow, they knew something greater was possible, and they were willing to stand up and make the waves to wake the people up to that possibility.
I love that so much. And so being a wave maker, are you or have you been a wave maker, or tell us a little bit about how that applies to your own life?
Sure. Well, what I would ask your listeners to really look at is like, are you the person who is always kind of, gone against, the stream? Have you always been the one that's like, I don't know if I want to fall in line here. I have my own ideas of how this should go. And for the longest time, I bought that in order to create that way, or to like actualize what I'd like to see in the world, whether it be the world or whether it be, in a project or a creation on a team, that I had to do an amount of fight. I had to stand up and secure my ground and fight the opposition, which didn't get me very far. And so, yes, I would say that, yes, I always have been, but it's been something that hasn't always contributed to me because of the way that I was looking at it. I was always in the battle for my point of view rather than being the invitation to possibility that I was aware of.
The invitation for possibility of things that you're aware of. So could you share a little bit more about, like, when you're aware of something, then what?
That's a broad question, my friend.
Right?
Then what? Well, it's a combination of a number of things. So I used to use my awareness and the desire to create something as a way to prove that I was valuable. And what I would do then is create a projected future, and I would narrow down the things, the possibilities that could show up to make that future even greater, even other people's awarenesses. Imagine that. And I would shut them out of my world and not receive from other people. And when you start to block the receiving from other people, they don't exactly show up to support or create with you. They are doing exactly what you've decided is being done to you, which is, decide that you are right, they are wrong, and the only way to go is the way that you want to go. And that doesn't really inspire people to get on your bus and create with you. So the then what is really lowering the walls and barriers, asking for the greatest possible outcome for what you are aware of, being aware that you might only be aware of just part of it, and inviting other people to contribute, and then following the energy, following the lightness to get to that as a possibility.
Wow, there's a lot of information in what you just said. So extrapolating on that just a little bit more, when you have that awareness, right, and you start to say, hey, I get this possibility exists here. And then you talked a little bit about walls and barriers being up. So, and how when they are up, how that really does limit what can show up. What can you do to change what might be going on there?
Well, what I would say is, when you announce a possibility, are you writing it in pencil or are you writing it in permanent ink?
That's a great question.
Because really, if you're looking for the possibility, then it stops to, if you're not doing it from proving, it stops to matter, who gets the credit for it, whose name is in lights because of it. If you're truly asking for it to show up in the world, however it is required to show up, then that won't matter. When I look back to, people in American history, I mentioned Martin Luther King Jr., he wanted to see equality. And I don't know that the man cared how it got here. It was, hey, all men are created equal, and we should be living in that way. And so did he write that in ink that it be him, or was he constantly moving to whatever door would open, with the pencil and the eraser to write a new script if required? And I think that when we are writing in ink, it's harder for people to show up to support you. And what I mean is people support what they help to create. So if they show up, people are showing up and they can co-create a possibility with you, you have their buy-in, and then they're there and want to continue to create with you because you've supported what they were aware of as well.
You have such a great way of explaining this that I wonder, and no matter what you're doing, whether it's something in the business world or your personal life or with friendships, like you can take what you just explained and really like apply it to any part of your life. And when you see people doing that, what are you aware of there when people are willing to do that and be that?
Well, it creates a malleable future. It creates nothing set in total stone. Like it could be, like you said, it could be your friendship trying to decide where you want to go to lunch or what area you want to explore in a trip, and people have different ideas. If we all know the person who's there, like, no, it has to be my way or no other way, and what that does to, your body, your openness to include them, how much of you have to shut off in order to create with them. It just isn't as much fun. And Betsy, as you said in the intro about me, I'm all about the fun. So if you are looking at what you'd like to create, one of the things, the words you mentioned that I love to talk about these days a lot is being a futurist. And a lot of times people think that futurist is like, fortune telling and telling the future in the way that is, prediction. And what I would say is futurist is somebody who actually looks out and looks at possibilities and asks questions on what's going to create the most and create the greatest possible outcome for everybody involved. And so if in this example, if you were trying to figure out where to go for lunch and everybody had different ideas, if you're willing to be malleable, then it includes others and then also includes you and what you'd like to have. And so you can end up choosing, a food court that it will include everybody, or maybe you decide you find something that, has multiple different kinds of food, or you explore, we're going to go here for lunch and here for dinner. Possibilities will start to show up if you don't make anything solid.
That is so true. Like you said, possibilities show up when you don't make anything solid and you're willing to go with the flow. And for your own life, and for me, certainly when I have been the rigid, I don't want to change my mind person, and looking at how difficult that creates different situations in my life versus, the tree that's willing to bend with the wind. And, it's really, for me, it was looking at what would I like to create with my life? Where would I like my life to go? And being that rigid, not willing to bend versus, the tree that does, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier. And I don't have to fight all the time when I'm willing to not be so rigid and strict in what I have thought or believed. And so if there's somebody listening to this, Sarah, who's like, yeah, I just don't know how to do it. It kind of sounds like something I'd like to try, but I have no clue even what I might be doing that I could change or, what things could I do to change? So if anybody's listening who's in that kind of question, what would you like to recommend for them to play with?
Well, I love to start with acknowledgement. So first, acknowledge that you actually are aware of a possibility. If you're hearing this right now, you're aware of something you'd like to change and you're inviting the possibility in. So acknowledgement actually kind of sets our foundation to build anything we want on it. If you're coming at anything that you'd like to look at in your life, if you acknowledge your awareness of another possibility, then it's a great start. And then look at, like you said, go with the flow. It's so interesting because one of the things that I think people do is think that in order to make the change, the flow is not the way to go. which brings in our Wavemaker, right? You can go with the flow and be the biggest wave possible into the flow that creates the ripple effect of the future that you're asking for to show up. So going with the flow does not necessarily mean giving you up. It means actually expanding out, being the bigness and the greatness of you. And oftentimes it can move, you can move mountains when you're willing to like walk with people and create with them and not always against them.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And I think we're heading towards our first break here. When we come back, I would love to hear maybe a personal example. So I'll give you a warning instead of just throwing this on you of how you've, done that in your own life. So stay tuned for more with Sarah Grandinetti today, guys. Thanks for listening.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Are you looking to change anything in your life? To have an even greater appreciation of everything around you? Would you enjoy having a life of more joy and greater abundance? And explore what is possible for you? My name is Betsy McLaughlin, and I invite you to explore simple and pragmatic tools that I share on my radio show, Imperfect, Brilliance. I know firsthand that you can change anything. We explore tools and questions with amazing guests, offering all kinds of conversations on living your best life. I invite you to listen in Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern to Imperfect Brilliance. Consider a coaching call with me and let's explore what you would like your life to be like. Visit my website at www.creatingyumminess.com and you're invited to call in to Imperfect Brilliance with your questions, Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. I look forward to connecting.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Imperfect Brilliance with Sarah Grandinetti today as my special guest, and we are talking about being a futurist, being a Wavemaker, and what that is, and how you might actually be it already and not even realize it. So, Sarah, do you have a story you could share with us, a personal journey to this?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have so many stories that come up with that question. So it's kind of tapping into the listeners, and the one that pops the most is really kind of a generalized story, and that's when I started to create outside of my salon business and create with access consciousness, and it was little by little I chose it was the first class to fly internationally. And then I said, I'm going to do that every other month. And then it became every month. And it was a slow progression towards having more of me. And as we know, oftentimes when you set out on your own personal journey to change, the people around you get uncomfortable. They start to ask questions. They want you back the way they knew you to be, because that's what was comfortable for them, and that's how they met you, and that's what they signed up for. And so, but what I did for a long time was fight the undercurrents, fight the those in my life who were like, no, you can't change, and I'm not changing, so don't ask me to change. And so I would slow myself down, stand in one place, and basically tell them, so strongly what I was aware of and what they could be choosing, and, that their life wasn't going to be as great as they could have it if they were only willing to look at what I was willing to look at. And that's basically, that's shoving possibility down someone's throat, and no one likes to be force-fed, turns out. So what I started to choose instead was to move forward with a stream of possibility that I was choosing, making waves and creating wake, if you will, in other people's lives. And it was so interesting. I no longer have any fight in my world for what other people are choosing or not choosing. And so many of the people around me started to go into question because I wasn't force feeding them anymore. And they started to ask me more, hey, what is it that you're choosing? What is it that you're creating? And I could be such a greater contribution from that space of moving through my life, being the wave that I am, creating the ripple effect, and that ripple effect will start to touch those around you that you think you have to be this tsunami for to change, and it's actually not what's true.
Yeah, that's a great example, Sarah, because you're right. Like, nobody likes to be told what to do, and then just the natural thing is be like,
Sound effects, I love it.
Exactly. So then you fight against it, or you go to prove them like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, or whatever, but most people just go into reaction when somebody's like, well, I know what's best for you, and so with that, I love the analogies that you used, and where you talked about like the wake and the ripple effects and all. And I was actually thinking about when I was learning how to water ski, and when you are in the middle of the lake, the wake, versus when you're going out, when you pull the the cord, and then you're like going outside the wake, and then there's the smooth part, and then the rough part, and then when you're going back in the wake, it's so I was just like looking at that analogy of how much have we done that in so many different parts of our lives. And then when it is the smooth thing, do you ever get where people are thinking maybe the smooth water part is boring?
Yes. Yes, this is a fun transition, because what I've also seen are people who, and I'm a recovering problem solver. And so if things are too smooth, instead of seeing a smooth ground that I could create with and from, I was so good at creating a problem, creating a wake that I would have to jump through or over in order to continue on, because then life was valuable and it had meaning. Whereas now, writing that the smooth sailing is actually where there's like way more possibility if you would have for it, or have it and allow it and invite it. If you don't have problems, it's like, then why do you stay in consciousness? Why do you stay in personal development? Why, if you're already fit, why do you go to the gym? Like all of these things that we have to use judgment. And the judgment part, you have to judge yourself, find something wrong in order to work on you. And one of the things that we explored in this Wavemaker conversation is that you can actually be the photon wavelength that removes the particulates. And the particulates in this are actually all of our points of view and our judgments and our limitations. And if you're willing to be the wave that actually starts to uproot those and move those, then you're always in the fluidity of the greatness of your being. And you can add possibility to anything to make it greater. It doesn't have to be a problem in order for you to add the wave energy that you be to it.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I know, too, the seems like a good time just before I forget. I know you'll have a Wavemaker class coming up, right, where people can really kind of dive in and explore this. Could you share that with everybody?
Yeah. It's, am I allowed to say it? It's called
I'm not sure.
The Perfect Storm. Bleep.
Bleep storm.
Yep. There's a certain kind of storm to perfect storm. And really it's about anything that shows up in your life as a storm. You get to decide whether it takes you away, it takes you under, or you actually become the elements of the storm that will create the change that you're looking for. And there's, so what we have is in the first week of November, we're doing a 7-day adventure on Facebook where I'll be going live in a private Facebook group every day. And just kind of exploring all of these topics. We have actually had a post that went up today that says, "Are you the missing element of the perfect storm on this reality? While this year has been an intense ride and some may say a total storm, it is when all these things come into play that great change can actually happen. Storm to perfect storm will have you looking at where you are forgetting the key ingredient of your life, and that's you. You are a badass creator. You are the perfect storm of brilliance that can change this reality. Instead of being at the effect of this reality, would you dare to choose to be the effect on it?" So
I love that.
That's what that's about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Right. So if you guys are interested, you can find it on Facebook. Sarah Grandinetti is pretty easy to find. Or is it on your website as well?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Okay, and the link will be in the it's in the description in the archives, which will be on the OMTimes radio. They're so fast in getting these replays up, and the information for her website is actually already there. And then why don't you go ahead and share with us also, Sarah is a Being You facilitator as well, which is a specialty that you can be, that was based on the book Being You, Changing the World, which was written by her brother, Dr. Dane here. And so she is a brilliant Being You facilitator, and she's also got the Unearthing of You coming up, which is, it looks like a 3-day. She just sent me the graphic to it. So tell everybody about that one.
Well, the Unearthing of You class is really looking at where we can start to expose the greatness of us, move through life as the wave, moving through judgments and limitations, and actually including the earth in the Unearthing of You. I don't know if I ever looked at, if I be more of me, I contribute more to the earth. Like, what? Mm-hmm. But what I started to see is how much judgment actually is in our world still that is greatly affecting how the earth can show up and what she requires, because we're all caught up in the fight and the opposing points of view and not in the possibility. And in the possibility is where things grow, and our earth actually can use our contribution and our awareness and our consciousness to contribute back to her. So Unearthing You is actually a way that you can do that, to be in your greatness, no longer having to slow you down and what you can create on our planet.
Wow. That sounds pretty delicious, I must say, Miss Sarah.
Thank you.
Yes. And so how, looking at that, like, what are you aware of as a futurist, as a Wavemaker, that you can contribute and create for the earth, for the future of our planet, just by starting to have these conversations. So what would you like to add there?
Well, I mean, the conversation is absolutely where it starts, and getting people aware of what's going on our planet, including the earth in your living. So many of us are walking upon this beautiful planet and never actually acknowledge it, refuse to receive from it. And I know I was one of those people. I thought that was for those other, like I would always say that was for those people. I have a whole slew of those people that I used to live by. You know, those people will choose sustainable living. Those people will recycle. Those people will look at how, you know, the choices that they create, how it affects the planet. And I figured there were enough of those people out there that I didn't need to add my energy. And when I started to acknowledge and be the greatness of me, I can't leave this infinite being out of the equation any longer. I know the potency that I be for change, and I'd like to contribute whatever I can to our beautiful planet.
So you just said something that I love, and I'd love to ask you a couple more questions around it. So you said, you know, I'm the potency. And so what if somebody has no idea whether or not they're potent? What could they start exploring there? What questions could they ask, or what would you advise them there?
One of my favorite questions from the beginning of classes is to start to look at, if you were truly being you here, what would you be aware of? If you were truly being you, what would you be willing to acknowledge about you? And what gift are you that, if you were to acknowledge it, would expose the potency? If you've changed anything ever, then you have potency to change. So I don't know very many people who have walked through their life and haven't ever put their attention on something that they'd like to have change and not have it showed up. But what happens is we, like we said at the top of the call, like we start to limit what can show up based on our points of view. And so as we clear those things out, you start to be able to acknowledge even more of the gift of you, and step out of being a victim to this reality and start to see that every choice that you've ever made has contributed to where you are now. So now what choices would you like to make? Dr. Dane here recently said, the author of Being You Changing the World, also my big brother, recently said, like, we've always had our magic, always. We're not seeking our magic in order to create change. We've always created with our magic. So everything that you have ever had show up in your life has been directly related to your ask, to your willingness to receive it, and to your magic. So if you can acknowledge that if you were asking for it and you weren't willing to receive it, it's why it didn't show up. It doesn't mean that you weren't actually receiving exactly what you were willing to have show up, which is magic. So, starting to peel apart our points of view of us, I would say, is a great place to start in order to get to the potency that you actually be.
Fantastic. I love it so much. And there is so much that you've weaved through this conversation today about acknowledgement and what the gift is in the acknowledgement of you and what you are aware of. And what I would love to ask you now is, let's say you just have this knowing. You just know there's something else possible, but you don't know what that is. And you can't really put your finger on it, but you just have this awareness. What could you then do?
Start asking it questions. Start asking every day for the awareness of what's next to show up, and listen to the whispers. I used to think, as the wildest thing, Betsy, I used to think that whispers were whispers, like I was going to hear something. Instead of that, what I started to open up and ask for the whispers of my creations to talk to me, it can be like, I would say just recently I looked at something and I was gazing off into, I was in my car. I was gazing off, out my window, and I ended up seeing a sign, like an actual street sign that gave me information because it matched what we wanted to create next. So like, even right now, I'm looking at the whispers of our new class that we're creating with the storm to perfect storm. And you said, go with the flow. So I've been asking all day for that to speak to me. And you said, go with the flow. Those are words I haven't used yet in this creation. And it showed me something. So whispers can come from anywhere if you're constantly asking your creations and what you'd like to, actualize in the world to speak to you in all different ways, but it might not actually be a whisper if you're willing to receive from anything and anyone. You'll get the information that you require as to, what's next, what's possible.
Yeah, it could be a whisper. It could be right in front of your face. It could be hitting you over the head very loudly or anything in between, right? I love that so much. That's awesome. Oh, we're really cute, aren't we?
We are. It's a good thing, too.
Well, let's see. What else would you like to explore here with this being a Wavemaker and being a futurist? And again, you get saved by the commercial, so you can think about where you want to go next, and we'll be back very soon, guys. Thanks so much.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Thank you so much for tuning into Imperfect Brilliance. And my guest today is Sarah Grandinetti. And we're having a wonderful conversation about being a futurist and a Wavemaker, and what does that mean, or what does that look like, and what do you do? Before we start back up again, I would like to invite people to a creation that starts with me tomorrow, which is actually 21 days of creating yumminess with your body. And it will be a private Facebook group where I'll be doing Facebook Lives every day and clearings. And then we will have a Zoom call at the end of the 21 days. I'm super excited about what we can create with our amazing, amazing bodies. And Sarah's website, if you guys are just tuning in and missed the first part of our conversation, is sarahgrandinetti.com, and she's got some really cool creations coming up as well. So, Miss Sarah, did you think about my question while we were on our little break?
I did, and I also want to acknowledge you and the yumminess that you create with your body, and I just want the listeners to know that hugging Betsy is kind of one of the greatest things there ever was. So whatever you do, don't take a class with her, or totally do it and have everything change.
Thank you. I do. I love hugging people. There's just such a beautiful energy that is possible, and you had talked a little bit earlier about receiving, and when people are willing to receive that and receive you, even if it's a little bit, it's just such a beautiful exchange of energy. So thank you for the acknowledgement, and I'm receiving that with total gratitude and joy.
You're so welcome. And so you're going to have to remind me of your question.
Yes, that's okay. I don't even hardly remember it myself, but it was really just like if there's another piece to the conversation that you would like to talk about that with being a futurist and a wavemaker.
I would say that it's never too late to start going after what it is that you would like to see in the world. And if anything, gosh, Can you imagine if everybody who would like to see change on our planet started to show up now and stop giving themselves the excuse of I'm not this, or I'm not enough, or I don't have enough, I don't make enough. If we kind of put down all of our limitations and our excuses and the things that we've been telling ourselves, the lies we've been buying about ourselves for so long, and just started to show up and say, hey, what contribution can I be? What contribution can I be to this change? And it won't look the same as everybody else. It just won't. The trickle of possibility of being kind to the guy at the drive-thru who's handing you your food and smiling at him and making eye contact and actually acknowledging his being sometimes is the same as, writing a letter to your congressman. It's being a space and a kindness in the world that truly is the ripple effect to change it.
Yeah. I was actually at the dentist earlier today, and, I walked in and the receptionist is sitting there and she has to wear a mask all day long. And, she's behind this plexiglass thing, all the stuff that they've put into place for COVID. And I said to her, I said, gosh, how are you doing with having to wear the mask all day? And just had a conversation with her. And she said, I want to thank you so much for actually acknowledging that it's not easy for me wearing this mask all day. And thank you for taking the time to ask me. And I was looking at that going, gosh, that she's sitting there all day long and nobody's having these conversations with her, because we're also, we get so wrapped up in our own stuff. And it just was like such a reminder for me of, like you just said, acknowledging the people that you have interaction with, every single person, and then what a gift that can be for them that you don't even realize.
Yeah, it takes all of us. Recently, I was having a conversation with Dane, and I was telling him, I said, and we were talking about Wavemakers, funny. And I said, most people who show up in my Being You classes, I said, don't think they can change the world. How do we change that? And I said, they all think they're not enough. And, a laundry list of excuses in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And, and he said, well, in some ways they're right. And I said, hold the phone. What do you mean they're right? You wrote the book Being You, Changing the World. How can you say they're right? And he said, well, they aren't enough alone. And he said, if you look at that statement, you are not alone, it's like you are not alone. You are not enough alone, but together in oneness and communion with one another is how we start to change the world. And so we're not all going to be, in political debate, trying to, pass laws and change things. We're not going to all be, at the UN fighting for, the changes for our planet, for the earth. But what you can do is that little thing, like talking to the girl behind the desk at the dentist office. What you can be is, thanking the mailman. What you can be is someone who gets out of judgment of them, so that they can actually look at what contribution they really do be for the world. And it might seem small and it might seem like not enough. And those are probably just still lies that you've got about you as to why you still feel that way. But if you were willing to start wherever you have to start, but start.
Yeah.
We can do this, and we can do it together.
Well, and I remember for a long time thinking, I'm just one person. I'm just this tiny little speck in, a molecule in the whole planet. And how could I possibly ever have an impact or change anything? And I don't have that point of view anymore. And I'm really glad about it. And so if we can all realize that we are far more valuable than we realize we are, that we've ever acknowledged, even just in that acknowledgement, then I'm actually getting chills saying this. It's like, okay, then if we can all acknowledge the gift that we be and what the possibility that is there, then if we are all linking arms together, that look at the tsunami that would start creating for this world.
You just said tsunami.
I did.
Exactly. But to the things it takes those of us who are sitting on the sidelines going, I'm not enough. I've never been enough. I never will be enough. Or I already have my life set, or I'm already this old, or, I've never been received. Just throw all those excuses in the fire, light them up, and start. And again, it can start with as little as get the Being You Changing the World book, see what changes for you in your perspective of the gift of you, and start from there. Once you get the gift of you, so much more becomes possible.
Boom, true story, hashtag mic drop. It is so true. All of the above and more. And so if you guys are curious about this book, it is Being You, Changing the World by Dr. Dain, D-A-I-N, Heer, H-E-E-R. It is available on Amazon. You can do audio if you prefer the audio. It's in a lot of languages. How many languages is it translated in now?
I think we're at 14, 15.
Wow.
I could be totally off.
Lots and lots.
It's a
of
lot.
languages.
Let's say lots. Yeah.
So Amazon or the Access Consciousness website, they have a store as well. So it's pretty easy to find. It's also if you still have a local bookstore, a lot of local bookstores carry it as well. So that was my first book that I read when I discovered Dr. Dain. And I was reading it just going, oh my God, these are some things, thoughts and ideas I've had that I've never heard anybody else have those ideas and thoughts. So it was really, I was so grateful to have read it and see there really are, and I know there are people with different perspectives, but sometimes you forget these things. And he wrote it just so beautifully that it was like he was reading and talking to me directly. So it was a really big impact in my life to read this book. And every single time I read it, even just pick it up and read a couple of pages, it's such a gift.
Yeah, I would say this book comes with a disclaimer. If you don't want your molecules to melt, don't read it. Because you literally cannot go into that book from front to cover and not come out with a different point of view about you.
Yes.
And I mean, there are certain parts of that book, anytime I read it, I just bawl like a baby. And I've read it 100 times and I'm still bawling like a baby. It's so funny.
Well, and that's actually that, Dain writing that book even is a great example of being a futurist and a wavemaker, and look at the thousands and tens and hundreds of thousands of people that have read that book, that have had their lives changed by it. And if he had not written it, if he hadn't been willing to start making some waves and be that difference, I can't even imagine all the people that, wow. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also I told him, recently I was saying, like the wave that he is and the ripple effect that he's been in the world, going from somebody who was willing to take his own life, a story that is in the book, and then said, you know what, I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna make it the demand that the universe show me something. He gave the universe 6 months, and when I tap in as his little sister as well, but I just can't think of what world we would be in if this one person didn't show up to discover his greatness so he can inspire it in others. And, if you've never heard of Access Consciousness and you never heard of Dr. Dane here, that's okay. It's not, it's there. Access is in 176 countries with thousands and thousands of people around the world that have been changed by this. And what if thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people is actually, that ripple effect of these two men, Gary and Dane. Gary Douglas also is the founder of Access, who, didn't give up, didn't take no from this reality as the answer, and kept going. So we can all be. Well, here.
And I love that. I love that question. And there's so many different people who have been willing to be completely different and like stand up. Even like the Orville brothers when they wanted to fly something, and that had never been done, and people thought they were absolutely crazy. And you think about all the people through history who have been willing to be a wave maker and do something different, and just think where our world would be without any one of them not choosing to stand up and be different. And
Absolutely.
So where if somebody is looking at that and they don't want to be seen as different, what kind of tips or tools could you share with them that might contribute there?
Well, it's kind of a secret, so I don't know if you actually want people to hear this, so you can decide whether you keep it on the show or not. But whether they want to be seen as different or not doesn't make it not true that they're already different. So you can either be the pink elephant in the room trying to hide behind the tree, or and continue to lie to yourself and this reality that you'd like to have change, or you can show up as the fancy pink elephant you truly be and start to create with that difference, because just because you're denying it doesn't make it not true.
It's like the ostrich sticking its head in the sand saying, I'm not an ostrich, right?
Exactly. So true.
Nobody can see me because I can't see.
Like the toddler hiding behind the curtain. You can't see me. You can't see me.
Exactly. And that's such a great analogy, Sarah. Thank you. So much fun. And so how much fun could you have with being the Wavemaker you actually truly are, and tapping into and playing with the futuristic capacities that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. And if it seems too big for you right now, if you're too afraid of the ocean and waves, then start with a puddle. Like play as the waves, is that wherever you can create some waves, be it, but not from defense, not from offense, but from being the expansion and the greatness of you and the invitation of you. Because that's really what it is that we come together in oneness and communion and ask questions and co-create a greater future for all of us.
I love that. So as we round out this time together, first of all, thank you again for being here today with this great conversation. I'm so grateful.
Thank you for having me.
And if you had a couple of questions that people could start playing with and explore, what would those be?
Oh, it's a good one. Well, I would say, what Wavemaker are you that you've decided you aren't, that you could start to include and start to actually, like I said in the beginning, acknowledge acknowledge where you have made waves, acknowledge where you have invited possibility. Start to acknowledge, even the places where you've decided you're a victim to, either this reality or to a person or to a relationship or to a circumstance, and start to look at, what you actually did receive there. And if you champion that situation, if you moved out of it, if you've moved on, or if you're looking at it as a possibility, what potency have you always been that you have yet to acknowledge? And like I said, anywhere that you acknowledge something, you can create more of it. That's how acknowledgement works. And acknowledgement, really getting what acknowledgement is, has changed my life. So start to acknowledge more of you.
So true. Sarah, thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Take care. Have a great week. Thank you so much for listening in. Sarah Grandinetti, I'm so grateful you came and played with us today. Have a great one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.